Ah, the zombie genre. In the late 2000s and early 2010s, or however you want to pronounce this decade, we'll just mark this area as the zombie boom. Every video game developer had to cash in on the explosively popular cash grab of the undead cannibals brought to life by George A. Romero. Of course, we had a few games here and there in the 90s and early 2000s, specifically with franchises like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Dead Rising, and even the infamous arcade game House of the Dead, who all did something creative with the idea of the zombies, fighting wave after wave of slow, clambering, reanimated corpses in a creepy setting, albeit they did add some more demonic archetypes in the mix, so it would add to the horror factor. Resident Evil and Silent Hill using a more horror survival factor to bring Dead for an episodic experience that would go to make numerous sequels in one game that will never see the light of day. And Dead Rising, of course, just making mindless fun of the idea of hundreds of zombies to slaughter and play with. But besides that, Call of Duty chipped in right before the major zombie boom by making a whole separate game mode just labeled Zombies in Call of Duty World at War, and subsequently overhauled it into future installments. Whether or not you view it as milking the idea of zombies, we can't deny it, alongside AMC's The Walking Dead, more on that later, brought some popularity to the whole idea of zombies in mainstream culture. The shout out to Romero and Black Ops Call of the Dead was true zombie fan service as well. Further installments of Call of Duty would just feel like it was milking the zombies idea after a while though, and with Black Ops 4 clinging to the popular battle royale type, it seems the developer was just trying to milk things in the first place, and zombie mode was just kind of an afterthought. It's hard to say if it was from passion or pursuit of milking an idea for money. We got a ton of franchises milking the proverbial undead cow, examples including Red Dead Undead Nightmare, Borderlands, The Zombie Island of Dr. Zed, Rock of the Dead, Lollipop Chainsaw fan service as fuck, and Plants vs. Zombies, and so much more. And then some companies decided to sell out and do a zombies mode way too late, like last year's Metal Gear Survive. Some decided to be ultra realistic with how a real zombie apocalypse would be, like in installments of 7 Days to Die, State of Decay, H1Z1, and others use the zombie aspect to better suit a loot-based RPG realistic system like Dead Island and soon after Dying Light. But then sometimes we have people that make it less about shooting for the head and blowing up guts and more about the ramifications of the zombie apocalypse and how it can transform society and its people, while also trying to make a great story. When Telltale came in with their The Walking Dead rendition, which rode the success of AMC's television series that really exploded zombies into mainstream culture, and probably most notably so are a series that I can't go without mentioning when bringing up zombie-like games, but The Last of Us, who blended perfectly story, gameplay, graphics, and everything else that has regaled it as one of Naughty Dog's greatest games and one of gaming's greatest series of all time. I, however, have not played it. If you want to see me stream the game sometime, let me know in the comments, but we aren't here to praise the journey of Joel and Ellie or to do a complete thesis on zombie games and media, and we aren't here to put down Resident Evil or Dead Rising or Silent Hill. We'll get back to those games at a different time. No, we're here to compare them to the pinnacle zombie game. With the 10-year anniversary of the Left 4 Dead franchise fast approaching this November, I wanted to take the time and see what sets Left 4 Dead apart from other zombie games. Now, some keynotes for Left 4 Dead. I want to go over some key factors that really put Left 4 Dead at the forefront of other zombie-style games out there. I'll be going over the zombies themselves, how it is fighting them, how they spawn, and their numerous variants, how the game streamlines the story for a more direct and engaging experience with its characters, how the director shaped the game into something completely unique from replayability to music, and the various ways to play in the game. First off, fighting the zombies. The infected, not zombies, infected of this game are not slow-moving, low-motor-skilled former humans and aren't an intelligent hive mind seeking to conquer the populace, kind of like in Resident Evil or Halo. They are fast-acting individuals who look to maul you to death by any means necessary by climbing any surface, breaking down any door, not actually wanting to dine on your flesh, but to just murder the hell out of you. Left 4 Dead takes more inspiration from the Rage infected from 28 Days Later, while series like Call of Duty, Dead Island, State of Decay have the slowly moving and dim-witted zombies of George A. Romero's Dead series, not counting the boss zombies that they throw in to break the monotony of fighting with just one class type. The fluidness, ease, and fun of killing multiple zombies is a very attractive charm to the game. The gore mechanics of the common infected, having hundreds of ways to be brutalized depending on how and where you shoot them, bash them, or chop them, instead of spending painstaking amounts of time on each infected. Can you imagine how it would be playing Left 4 Dead if you had to do it in the style of Dead Island? Oh god. This and the fact that you must fight an overwhelming number of infected all at once. But like any other zombie genres, Left 4 Dead did reuse the trope of regular zombie types with varying degrees of clothing for enhanced difficulty in combat, like the riot infected needing extra precaution to take down, but more so than that addition was Left 4 Dead's Dead's biggest difference that changed the genre, the Special Infected. The Special Infected. The variety of this Special Infected set a precedent for the future zombie-style genres. While there was boss-like zombies to fight in past games, most zombie shooters had you fighting wave after wave of the same or similar types with maybe a different class of zombies that offered a slightly different mechanic or more health and a different color, or maybe they threw dogs in the mix. But Left 4 Dead introduced regularly occurring Special Infected that weren't too much stronger than normal infected, but offered varied attack strategies that forced the player to think differently on how they would move, use their weapons, and how to be careful with their gunfire. A key word is careful here, considering the boomer and witch being shot could easily turn things into a worsened state for the player and his team. Whereas in most games, firing indiscriminately into a zombie horde was the norm, the witch adding a stress level for the survivors to take extreme caution and being careful for where they were going and firing changes the pace immediately for the game. After Left 4 Dead, we saw the trope of an exploding zombie type up, left, and right, as well as just seeing boss class infected to add variety to the hordes of undead and playable zombies. Now another key factor is the only enemies are the zombies. Most zombie related games these days like to make you have a balance of fighting the undead and the living. The upcoming Dying Light 2 as well as series like Dead Island and Resident Evil are a perfect example of this. Also in Silent Hill, you will usually spend a good majority of the game fighting the undead until you hit a certain point when either an evil organization tries to prevent you from leaving the quarantine area, an already closet insane individual goes full psycho like Eddie in Silent Hill 2 and tries to kill you, or just a band of thugs takes over a city and wants you dead for your loot like in Dead Island. Left 4 Dead never crosses into this territory, leaving the enemy class to be exclusively inhuman zombie-like infected targets. Now the story for Left 4 Dead, despite what some might say, has a branching storyline and a universe with rich lore, but isn't shoved down your throat with unskippable cutscenes, over-the-top dialogue, or forcing you to follow the story to understand what's going on. While details on what is transpiring in this universe aren't readily transparent, little bits of information are riddled throughout each chapter of the series, giving players clues on what happened prior to them arriving, putting more emphasis on how a real group of survivors would be as they progress through a pandemic, instead of an over-the-top cinematic experience full of drama and betrayals that so many zombie genre media like to enforce. Don't get me wrong, the narrative of stories like Telltale's The Walking Dead and Naughty Dog's The Last of Us are emotionally gripping stories, but sometimes we don't want to be oversaturated with the plot and just want to play the video game for what it's worth. The whole point is just a pure sample of trying to find a rescue to get to safety starting from point A to point B. While the setup seems simple, it is the characters who enrich the journey to their destination. Now the characters following the same routes as the story in terms of how it is delivered, the game is not shoving character development down your throat with exposition. We learn what we can purely through dialogue exchanges that randomly pop up while playing through each campaign, and that in itself adds to the replayability of the game. Each voice actor for the game had to record over thousands of lines of dialogue each and every time, and each line was recited well enough to sound natural in conjunction with their 3 other companions and various side characters dotted throughout the story. Valve made it crucial to make each character lifelike in animation, voice, and interaction to make it a more interactive and realistic experience for the player. Instead of playing as a character with one-liners that you start to hear regurgitated repeatedly over and over as if you're playing an old-school Duke Nukem game, or even hear just painful grunts and screams until a scripted scene is triggered. No, the characters in this, you can replay it over and over again, and sometimes you'll hear dialogue 2 years down the road that you never even thought were there.
Shit, I think I accidentally grabbed Diet Cola. We should go. Hey, thanks, Whitaker!
Teamwork. This is a big one. The game stresses the importance of teamwork, while in other games, going solo isn't usually punished severely. While most cooperative zombie games do have a mechanic of either downing a player if they take too much damage and must have someone else around to pick them back up or else they will die, a player can still fly solo if they're skilled enough and not fear punishment for not playing a team-based game like a team. Although games like Resident Evil and its co-op do pretty much require teamwork as well, in Left 4 Dead, if you run off on your own, the AI director will take note of this and spawn special infected like the hunter or jockey along with the horde to where even a skilled player can be pinned far away from their team, meaning karmic retribution from the director for straying from the flock. I mean, with a lot of zombie games, you could just goof around, go off on your own, you could take out multiple zombies on your own, but the thing is, they don't go to the pinning side of things, and they just make it to where if you get hit a couple times, you're down, which if you can run fast enough, you're okay, but in in like games like Call of Duty, you can do that. Left 4 Dead, if you get hit once, you're slowed down and then the horde will just tear you to shreds. Now the next category is the director and how it makes diverse replayability. The AI director is the pinnacle point to make when differentiating Left 4 Dead from other games of the zombie genre. Valve developed what was known as the director, who places enemies in varying positions and numbers based upon each player's current situation, status, skill, and location, creating a new experience for each playthrough, making each experience unique in that hordes, item spawns, special infected spawns, and dynamic paths can change depending on many factors like the player's stress level, frequency of attacks, and so much more. Instead of having fixed spawn points where players know exactly where the zombies will be funneled from at a time, like in a map of Call of Duty Zombies, the spawns for infected can be anywhere at any time in Left 4 Dead, as long as the survivors cannot see the spawn point directly, making every playthrough unique, as no two playthroughs will have the exact same methods of gameplay with slightly different outcomes. But with games like Dead Island, it could be randomly generated zombies, but it's not to the point where it's completely just different every time you play. And then games like Resident Evil have the set spawn points where speedrunners could just have an easier time. Now besides the physical stuff the director can manipulate, there is the music. In most horror cinema and interactive experiences, one of the most integral DNA strands in its genetic makeup is a predominant strain of musical composition. A creepy violin can make a dreary setting more creepy. A nice walk in the woods with Slender Man gets more intense the more you pick up Glitter with a lot more bass and a lot more. And Resident Evil throws cheap shots at you by doing jump scares at random intervals.
Oh, fucking Jesus Christ! You son of a fuck! Let me go! Let me go! Let me go!
By the way, side note, jump scares are not scary. They are startling. There's a difference. Basically just making clickbait material for popular YouTubers at that point. Left 4 Dead filled the horror niche with its grim soundtrack that slightly varied between campaigns. Left 4 Dead utilizes its music not only to set a mood, but to differentiate each setting, as we see predominantly in Left 4 Dead 2, with a more southern blend to the overall music composure. But changes depending on the campaign. Dark Carnival introduces a haunting set piece of chimes when encountering a horde, while The Parish, set in New Orleans, the birthplace of jazz and swing music, brings in horns and other ragtime instruments alongside the erratic, horrific events the survivors face. Left 4 Dead 2 seeked more to integrate with the environments it was in, instead of forcing a regurgitated soundtrack of strings, heavy bass, little children whispering, chimes chiming, high notes playing on a piano, and other horror or original soundtrack niches that I'm just kind of tired of. It's easy to build up suspense in music, but to use it well that serves a purpose is a whole nother story. Left 4 Dead uses its music masterfully as sound cues for events to come and events that were transpiring, giving individual chimes for when certain special infected spawn, when a horde is incoming, and when a finale is commenced, not only create atmosphere, but bring awareness to the player of what the director is about to execute action-wise, making it seem like it's a more cinematic experience that you, the actor, are going through and the director is directing you through. Now let's talk about the main game itself. There are a few main game types that Left 4 Dead is known for, mentioning campaign, survival, scavenge, and versus. Campaign mode, a direct playthrough of fighting against AI-controlled infected in an ever-changing dynamic controlled by the director to give a varied experience each game. Explore the linear environment as the survivors progress from point A to point B. Not much else to describe beyond what I've already covered. Now versus mode, this is the mode that the game prided itself on the most, especially for me, was its versus mode, allowing 8 people to play a 4v4 match of infected versus survivors. While the idea wasn't fairly new to play as a zombie, it was a very fairly balanced experience that didn't make the infected lean towards too easy or too hard to use in combat, while also giving infected players the ability to choose where they spawn at any given place and time. The balance of having infected that purely were to supplement others and patched in to prevent camping like the Spitter proved to show it was always about working together for an end goal, whether you were trying to survive or take out the survivors, while also preventing any cheesing. Games like Dead Space 2 and Dying Light tried to emulate the idea of playing as the enemy reanimated abominations of nature. There wasn't a fair bit of balance to it. The Be the Zombie mode in Dying Light gives a bit too much versatility and power to wipe out survivors with not much time to rescue others, which when you hop on someone you have like a second and a half or they just explode in a flurry of guts. It's cool, but at the same time it's like, Really? It's a fun mode, but honestly seems shoehorned in just to add more gameplay ability to the overall purchase of the game. Equally so far as playing as the Necromorphs in Dead Space 2, while you are given an equal variety of Necromorphs to play as, the fact that fixed spawn points can be easily learned after just a few number of plays can make it increasingly frustrating and difficult to play as the Necromorphs. That and the control scheme and attacks for the Necromorphs can be difficult, but not in a good fashion. Survival mode, I will say this is just like any other wave-based game type, seeing how long you and your team can last, beating a timed record each time you play. With the longer the time has passed, the increasing level of difficulty and number of special infected spawning. It's just the horde mode that Gears of War started to make even more popular. Now the next mode, Scavenge, I forgot this existed. Realism, upping the ante of difficulty by stripping the mechanic of being able to see fellow survivors through walls, making headshots do more damage and body shots do less, by basically just making it more realistic and offering a better challenge for the player. Not realistic in the sense of survival tactics like 7 Days to Die or State of Decay, mind you. Having to find food and living resources in Left 4 Dead would slow the game down way too damn much. And last but not least, mutations, various modes, and mods, offering up numerous game modes with varying levels of difficulty with even different mechanics to work around. Updating with new maps isn't unheard of for a game, especially because DLC is a thing. We did have the mutations mechanic added, which gave a great spice of flavor to the game, allowing the player to experience each setting with varying degrees of difficulty and rules. If you just wanted to play through with only katanas against droves of special infected, there's a mutation for that. Want to pit 4-player controlled survivors against 4-player controlled tanks? There's a mutation for that. Want to slap versus and survival together? Mutation for that. Want to be a tryhard to suck the fun out of a game? Confoggle will get you all the ladies. And we definitely can't forget about the modding community behind the Steam Workshop. That is a major factor in the game retaining such a wide player base almost a decade after the game's release. While other games do have modders to create new gameplay experiences for a player, none can compare to the Steam Workshop and modding community Left 4 Dead and Steam embraced so early on. I mean, what other game lets you kill a horde of Ugandan knuckles as a pack of velociraptors or waves of Martians as the cast of Futurama with ease? Not many games, I'll tell you that. It's a big reason why Left 4 Dead 2 still has such a big player base almost 10 years after its release. So bless you, Gaben, for giving us the modding community the tools it needs to make the game so much better. Now the final verdict. The game is simple at its core. On the outside, it's just an arcade shooter going from point A to point B, and in between these destinations is a bunch of running and gunning down zombies. There's a lot of games like that. House of the Dead was an on-the-rail shooter that really didn't do much. Everyone loves a good shoot-'em-up game, but sinking your teeth into Left 4 Dead, you discover a game that isn't up its own ass about why the infection started, Resident Evil, how the survivors will ultimately defeat the virus, pretty much a lot of the zombie games out there, or any nonsense. It's a game that isn't about story, but about the gameplay and actually piecing things together within the game and through likable character dialogue. Not saying The Walking Dead or The Last of Us didn't have that, but they did just kind of go over the top with it. Instead of just regurgitating the zombie trope by shoehorning in zombies in an already known gameplay style, Left 4 Dead created its own unique experience by making a whole new system through the director. While most current zombie games will procedurally generate zombies in a given area like Dead Island, Dying Light, Dead Rising, pretty much anything that says dead in it, it's not too much of a difference fighting them in the long run. The gameplay is different each time by making zombie hordes spawn differently with varying degrees of difficulty dependent on the team's performance level, the difficulty chosen at the start, as well as the paths the team has to navigate, certain item spawns, and spawning boss infected like the witch and tank to change the flow of each chapter. Left 4 Dead forces you to think quickly on your feet instead of running on top of a car and fake screaming like PewDiePie while you slowly pick it away at a zombie one by one, kind of like in Metal Gear Survive or in Dead Island. It pushes you to move forward instead of circling around the same area and will actually punish you if you stay in one spot for too long. An integral part of any zombie game will always come down to one thing though. How is it when it comes to fighting the zombies? And Left 4 Dead knocked it out of the damn park, allowing tons of infected to be on screen, all attacking while also being easy enough to kill if you can manage the horde, while also making it visually stimulating to see the carnage unfold as you fight back. I bring up these points and compare it to other franchises to show the change of pacing they have, the level of stories they offer, and the intensity of the fights involved and the music that sets its tone. Answering the question finally, what sets Left 4 Dead apart from other zombie games? Simply put, everything. It laid new foundation for future zombie games to build upon. Left 4 Dead has continued to be a unique experience in a myriad of games that tried to live up to its legacy, and none have quite reached its on the outside simple, on the inside complex, addictive charm. The 10-year anniversary is right around the corner, and I enjoyed every moment of playing it. That about wraps up the video. Is there differences I missed out on or didn't explain enough thoroughly? Let me know in the comments. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content, most likely Left 4 Dead related. That's pretty much what this channel's all about. Quick channel up, my usual YouTube live streams are now being moved to Twitch, so make sure to follow me on there. Username is on the screen right now, and link is in the description. Donate to my Patreon, follow me on Discord for WoW rewards, and to keep me motivated to make more videos. Shout out to my Patreon and possibly last time YouTube Super Chat donators. Lovable Tester, Mario, NATO6141, Ricardo A. Ascension, Shilarby, Turtle Lord, Katya's Left Eyelash, Twilight Duck, Brit Clit, Nick B, and Exploding Burritos Experience, Mocha, Dr. Do PhD, Chrissy Cogswell, Ninja Kirby 935, Ghost 115, Fishy, Owen Stebbins, Mr. Cruz, Nicholas Stevens, Waffle Lover 27, Florian B. Bell, Michael John Adils, I don't know how to pronounce that, UI Adams, Niels L, Taylor 07, Rees Tell, Austin Langford, Star Trust, Alejandro Castellanos, Wolf Death, Bryson Jones, Drake and Z4, Midnight, Zack Attack the Gamers, Bob Nuggets, and Slothic Goth. Thank you for your generous donations to WoW Such Gaming. And also, I have merch on for sale if you want the one-man cheeseburger apocalypse t-shirts and tees, V's, or tank tops, or you can even get a sticker if you're broke. So buy some of those if you want to keep this channel going as well. I mean, I got the shirt, it's pretty badass. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to stay WoW, and if you want to see some other analysis videos, I got some right here you can click on. Go ahead and click them. I know you want to. Get Left 4 Dead, baby. Wow!